Sorry, I'm just looking at something here. It is Wednesday, the 11th. Yes, the 11th of March. Can't even believe it's March already, 2026. And a lot of international news updates to get through. And some of them I'm actually quite thrilled that it's finally making mainstream media. But again, it's long overdue. And people that I have done videos on that work for CBC, that work for Global, CTV, etc., they're finally, again, getting exposed and on the record and by people who work with CBC. So I'm going to get into that stuff. That's exciting. So there's some court cases that have actually finally, again, like 6 years friggin' later, finally ended in a good resolution for pilots and others within Canada who were fired or suspended without pay and refused religious exemptions. And so it was found that these pilots, again, that suffered those extreme measures during COVID because of their religious beliefs, they had to show proof of their religious beliefs and how long they've been practicing and this and that and blah blah blah, all this bullshit again. And but again, it ended in their favor, and other court cases as well. So I'm hoping that we'll see more and more of that. And Dan Dix from Press for Truth was also covering that, so you can take a look at his new updates on that. So I'm just going to go back here. Okay, this I already talked about. Unbelievable. Okay. I might have shared this one as well, but just in case I didn't.
Week about another sprawling investigation and the detention of 60 Israelis since September 11th, the Bush administration treated the questions like hot potatoes.
I would just refer you to the Department of Justice with it. I'm not familiar with the report.
I'm aware that some Israeli citizens have been detained. With respect to why they are being retained.
Okay, so I did share that one yesterday. Yeah, and this one as well. I did comment on it as well that he's like, people are saying, oh, he's a Christian, typical, like he's not a real Christian. Real Christians, again, people that are believers in Jesus and the Bible lessons do not do what this kid, not even a kid, this 30-year-old, 31 years old, whatever, what he does. And so no, he's not a Christian. I've even showed like frauds who have worn like even the white collars and stuff like that, women, and underneath their t-shirt, again, it's part of like the Antifa crowd. Like there's so many people that are so disgusting. And I've even said this, even Adolf Hitler utilized Christians and exploited them, having spies to go into multiple different churches. And again, when people were doing confessions, like a lot of that information was being fed back to literal Nazis. And yeah, so I dislike Nazis and I dislike communists. And I already talked about this one as well, Pat David. Yeah, so a lot of like major influencers, podcasters do take the work from people like myself without giving credit. That's the annoying part.
The rule was simple: no politics.
Okay, that one as well. Okay, that's why I stopped where I did. That's why I went further. Because I was actually being proactive and bringing you guys to the place that I wanted to. So anyway, CBC is manipulating Canadians, and I'm going to share more and more clips of this anyway. So this is from Life with Sandurin.
To this bombshell testimony.
Under guardrails, governed by an internal document never made public, titled Parameters for Political Guests. Political access was centralized, booking decisions controlled elsewhere. It did not happen once. It became a pattern. It became the standard. Power in Politics, hosted by David Cochran, was given gatekeeping authority over which politicians could appear on Canada Tonight.
Rat. Traitor to Canada, and needs to be defunded. First of all, he needs to be charged, fired, and refund. That's what I meant to say. Refund taxpayers for all the money he has stolen from us while propagandizing the country. He is a traitor to the country. He is a disgusting human being. And again, I know this sounds, like rude and extreme, but again, this guy has been doing this for years. I know people personally who have gone in power in politics, and again, what's being pushed is so biased, and especially in the last 6 years. It's gotten worse, and it's getting even worse. And then people getting deplatformed. I used to be a military advisor to Global News. There was like two different times, 2019 period, 2018 period, where I actually had interviews, and I'm speaking out against the mainstream narrative. So did I get a call back? No. Did my video get removed? Yes, it did. And so that's what they do. It's very typical. They're not getting content from actual experts, from actual investigators, from actual whistleblowers. Again, Rosemary Barton and David Cochrane, like these radical leftists, have been allowed to run. Like again, it's a cult.
Unbelievable.
When I questioned that control and who
Over $1 billion
was in
a year.
control, I was viewed
Refund.
as disruptive.
Of course.
At the same time, I raised concerns about a toxic environment. After I sat down with Speaker Greg Fergus for a conversation on Black History Month, Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton circulated internal communications questioning my program, copying senior leadership, insinuating she or Mr. Cochrane should have done the interview. It was an intimidation tactic, which management ignored. I and others raised concerns about bullying behavior by senior figures, including Mr. Cochrane. But while he remained on air, I faced discipline and marginalization. Now, the transcripts of these meetings show the issue was not about my journalism, but about reputational risk to the corporation.
Unbelievable.
I received a written warning carrying the threat of termination. I was placed under confidentiality restrictions that prevented me from correcting public and internal narratives. CBC silenced and intimidated me simply for trying to do my job and fulfill my public service role to Canadians. Now, this is not about left or right. It's not about one tweet or one career. It's about systemic control, tokenism, selective enforcement, and a toxic culture where intimidation went unchecked.
And that is exactly why CBC viewership is down 30% year over year. Canadians are waking up to the bullshit and
a lot of that's paid. So fake viewerships, followers, likes, like they completely they pay for the algorithms to make it look like they're actually getting more views, subscribers, etc., than they actually are. So they're using our taxpayers' dollars in so many different ways in order to mislead us, and that's not what CBC used to be about.
Bias of CBC News. Shame on all of you at CBC News. Absolutely shame on you. You are supposed to be bringing in guests across the political spectrum to have open candor and debate. That is the foundation of democracy. Yet you bring in a bias because you are paid by this government and you are supporting and protecting this government at the detriment to Canadians. Canadians deserve to hear all of the different perspectives. They don't need you feeding the BS to them like they're babies. And that is exactly why Canadians now follow people like myself, Mark Nixon, Jasmine Lane, Mario Zelaya, to get their perspectives that are on all of these topics around the country that impact all of us because they're trusted. CBC gets $1.2 billion. You know how much we get from the government? $0. What we get is the satisfaction that we are informing Canadians and sharing our unfiltered, unbiased perspectives to them so they can make their decision. They're just being told our perspective. Does everyone agree with me? No, and I don't want you to agree with everything I say. We can have open, honest debate, and that is what democracy is found.
To this bombshell testimony.
Amazing. I hope this guy, like apparently his podcast is doing really well on YouTube. I'm going to start following him for sure and seeing what he's about. But I mean, he should get promoted. Like he should be back at CBC and he should be one of the head people there. Like he is clearly someone that we need to be speaking in Canada. I mean, going against the cult, like oh my goodness, I can only imagine how annoying that and frustrating that was, because I have contacted, and I have this on the record, via phone conversation and via email, CBC, CTV, Global News, part of the news tip lines, you name it, tip lines, giving my friggin' resume, and laughed at, hung up on, lied to, gaslit, and then we're going to get back to me. Oh yeah, this is very important information. I was having respectful, professional conversations with literal clowns that were super disrespectful. And again, it's taxpayers' money. So that really pissed me off. I've been of service to Canada, again, trying to again, and again, even being laughed at by men that were like answering the tip lines. What a friggin' joke. What a joke. At Canadians' expense. So anyway, I'm going to move on from that because I'm going to talk more about that. But this one was really interesting. I'm going to look more into it. But a post saying like, well, look who actually has a biological clock. And so apparently there's been studies done. I've talked about the decline in testosterone, the decline in fertility in men, and how a lot of fertility issues that are being experienced now, there's so many different friggin' reasons. So many different reasons, but we also have to look at the impact of men's fertility as well in the issues that women are having in conceiving, having kids. 40 to 50% now of complications to have children, childbearing, is because of the male as well. And so if a man becomes a father at 30, so a 30-year-old man, the baby will have 50% more paternal mutations than if he had done it at 18. And so very interesting studies. If you look at the comments, it's kind of hilarious what people are saying. And women are saying, yeah, and you're not going to see us start looking for younger men like men have been doing for many, many years, saying that we have a biological clock. Well, it turns out you do too. And so that should be interesting for future generations to, if that's, I'm going to look more into it again. Sometimes there's misleading, unbiased and biased reports. But I it does make sense.
Hey, when did the Rothschilds come to America?
Okay, switching gears again. About the Rothschilds. This guy does a really thorough breakdown of the Rothschilds and their impact, influence within politics, involved in wars, financing, etc. But also, like he could have, and again, I say he could have mentioned Queen Victoria and the influence that she had in allowing the Rothschilds to be involved with the monarchy and funding palaces and things like that as well. In the I think it was 30s or 50s. Anyways, I'll get into that. And the Titanic. There's so many different events that people can look into. But anyways, who are the Rothschilds? This guy does a really good job. His name was Zachary Loft.
Officially, they really started making noise about 1837. That was our first big crash. And what about after that? When they got here, what did they start doing? Businesses, infrastructure, railroads were big for them. And they would eventually start doing business with the mortgage, JP Morgan. Okay, so like, at what point did they like grab our country by the balls? Well, that would be about 1895, 1896-ish. That's when JP Morgan and the Rothschilds bailed out the entire country of America because we're running out of gold. And so they said, hey, we have $45 million worth of gold. Want it? I imagine there was a little bit of, quid pro quo there. Daggone. And then there's 1910, the Jekyll Island meeting after the 1907 bank panic that led to the 1913 formation of the Federal Reserve. And that was all because of an island that they met at that was owned by JP Morgan and the boat that sank that was owned by JP Morgan that kept the Federal Reserve's naysayers from getting the meetings. And now we have a central bank that's controlled by Rothschild Rockefeller money. Jeez.
Okay, he did mention that boat that sank. That's the Titanic. Okay.
And then that's not to mention the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812. They pressured America heavy to finance it. Even the Civil War, they were on both sides in the Napoleonic War. And guess what? The first thing our central bank funded after it was founded in 1913. 1913. That would be, did they fund? Oh, God. 6 months later, World War I. Well, that's all bad, but at least it stopped. Shortly after that, Britain would write them a letter saying, hey, that land in the Middle East that you want, we're going to give it to you, Mr. Rothschild. Israel, it's all yours. Oh. The reason you can't afford an engagement ring or a wedding band, it's because of the Rothschilds and the De Beers Diamond Company. In the mid-80s, they created an M&A company. An M&A company is a merger and acquisition company. Think private equity, but before private equity. And guess what they did with we might need to slow down, but what did they do with it? They were using it to get involved in Wall Street. They wanted to infiltrate the New York Wall Street monster that had been forming in America. You want to know what they did to do that? What did they do? They did it by sending somebody to New York City to oversee the purchase of Macmillan Inc. Macmillan Inc. was a media company that would be McGraw-Hill, which is responsible for a lot of the elementary school books that you and I were raised on. Do you want to know who they sent to New York City in 1988 to do this? Robert Maxwell.
I talked about this
He
for
was
years.
in partnership with Robert Maxwell. And when Robert Maxwell would go on to die on his yacht because he owed the Mossad money, guess who he also owed about 50 million pounds to? The Rothschild family through the Bank of England. Wait, that's Ghislaine Maxwell's father? Is connected to the Rothschild? That's right. Robert Maxwell, along with Roy Cohn, had been running a corporate blackmail ring throughout the entire world run by the Mossad. And when he died, Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein took on the reins. That's why they had been introduced only 6 months prior to his death. After that, they would go on to infiltrate people like the princes, the politicians, and the media moguls that we know today. And we know through Alan Dershowitz, Epstein's lawyer through 2008, 2009, admitted that he was introduced to Jeffrey Epstein in the early 90s by a Rothschild.
I was introduced to him by the lady in Lord Rothschild.
Wow.
But,
Subhumans.
Okay, well, we don't have proof that Epstein worked for Rothschild. Here's an email from Epstein
Not
over
elite.
to Peter Thiel. Says,
Inherited
you know,
wealth
I
and
represent
power.
the Rothschild family. Maybe only represented a few of them. Maybe he didn't represent the whole family. Here's this wrinkly old pervert, Les Wexner, saying he represented the whole family.
Done personal work for the Rothschild family in France. He represented their whole family.
What?
Gross.
Okay, what am I supposed to do with this? Tag Howard Lutnick. I think that's what we could do, because I believe he's a Mossad plant that's currently being seeded by the Rothschild family in a place precariously right next to Jeffrey Epstein. But all because he's his neighbor? Like, he just maybe bought the home on Zillow.
Yeah.
He didn't. He bought the
Number
home in
9 and number
1998
11.
from the Comet Trust, which was run by the
The homes that Lutnick and Epstein lived in when they were neighbors. Number 9 and number 11.
son of the World Jewish Congress founder and World Zionist Foundation organizer. Also before that, it was owned by Jeffrey Epstein himself.
Trump's hat, 45th and 47th president, 9/11. I've said that for years as well, even before he was president. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. When you add up the numbers, 45 and 47, again, it's 9/11. Weird.
Well, just because he owned it doesn't mean like it was his house or anything like that, or ever lived there. Or, like that. Come on, Jeffrey Epstein would actually live there in 1992, starting right after things got serious with Ghislaine. So they would probably be shagging or doing whatever from 92 to 95 in that property before moving over into the other property, which will remain vacant for about 3 years before Jeffrey Epstein gets to pick his neighbor. It happens to be the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, who would profit off of 9/11, survive 9/11, and also then use Cantor Fitzgerald with his sons at the helm to profit off of the very tariff being shot down in the Supreme Court that he helped form. So
yeah,
you basically think Howard Lutnick is like a really high-level crisis actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of it that way. Yes, that's exactly what I think.
Yeah.
What a liar. Lutnick the liar, that's what I call him. Hey, when did the Rothschilds come to America? Officially?
Just a little bit more on the Rothschild connection. Simple Google search. Okay, so while there's no historical evidence that Queen Victoria sold out the world to the Rothschild, she and Prince Albert did maintain a significant and mutually beneficial relationship with the family during her reign, 1837, when he's talking about that, and 1901. Financial and personal ties, because before that, like, there was never like they were super discriminatory and racist, like the monarch, right? So they banged their own siblings and parents and first cousins and stuff like that, again, just to maintain the wealth and keep it in the family, cause a lot of genetic mutations and things like that. But anyway, where was I going with that? I have no idea. Squirrel. Oh yeah, but it was under Victoria finally that they were that the Rothschilds were accepted, again, money and power, to be part of the royals and the nobles and stuff. Because before that, again, they would have never accepted what they called a Jew to be part of the monarchy or the establishment. Not my words, not my words. This was Queen Victoria's words, and the people like her as well at the time. And then she later again succeeded because of money. So financial and personal ties. The Rothschilds provided critical financial services to the British Crown and the government, which some modern critics interpret as excessive influence. The Balmoral estate in 1852, the London Rothschild House provided a discreet loan to Prince Albert to purchase the Balmoral Castle estate. Imperial interests, the family bankrolled major British imperial ventures. For example, they issued shares for the Burma ruby mines after its annexation in 1886, a move encouraged by politicians with close Rothschild ties. Advisory role, the family acted as discreet financial advisors to the Queen and Prince Albert, even handling small personal tasks like securing chocolate for the Queen's mother. Fucking brutal. An elevation to nobility, Queen Victoria was instrumental in the Rothschilds' entry into the British aristocracy, though she initially hesitated. Baron Rothschild, 1885, Victoria raised Nathaniel Natty Rothschild to the peerage as the first Jewish member of the House of Lords. initial reluctance. She had previously resisted Prime Minister Gladstone's proposal to grant a peerage to Natty's father, Lionel, due to his religious faith and her personal reservations at the time. Okay, so Suez Canal loan. Rothschilds famously funded a massive British government purchase, just 24 hours, often cited as the peak of their influence over British foreign policy. Again, you could go more and more into this, but these are not people that care about Canada or America or Americans, the people. They care about grifting, exploiting us, and I involve Carney in that mess as well. And oh my God, we need people like that are in RCMP and CSIS and stuff like that to start doing their friggin', like, anyway, it's hard to say do their jobs because whistleblowers, people that are trying to, again, they keep on getting targeted, attacked, suspended, charged.
So obviously your point.
So this is more on the whistleblower. Yeah, it's just to show you, like, he's naming names, etc.
Here was to create a panel that was full of diversity, not just in skin color or ethnicity or religious background, perhaps, but you wanted diversity of thought.
Correct.
Were you given the journalistic freedom then to move forward and do that for the sake of the Canadian public?
No, I mean, the issue became with the panelists. We had a list of 43 people or 45 people that Power and Politics gave us that said, do not go near these people, right?
Power and Politics.
And some of these folks were like
Rosemary Barton and David Cochrane.
Reporters like Robert Benzie. There's a story breaking at Queen's Park and we're on at 7 o'clock. We should be able to call, somebody who covers Queen's Park and talk to them. But there were these continued hurdles and roadblocks that were set up to really have a certain group of folks in Ottawa in control of who was allowed on programs. Particularly mine was a concern. And there were repeated episodes of conservatives being blocked. I mean, I have the G chats right here. I said, in terms of getting folks on, that we need to have balance. It's not about just having a show with conservatives or just with liberals. But if Power and Politics is going to have liberals talking points on all the time, we should have balance as a network. And I said, we are in contravention of Section 11 of, I told Brody Fenlon this, and also Andre Lau repeatedly. We are in contravention of the Broadcasting Act if we are not providing equitable time for all perspectives. So I don't want to flood the show with conservatives, but I do want to have balance. And there are, and this is all, I can talk to my legal team because some of this is before the Human Rights Commission in terms of how this happened, but there were repeated attempts over and over and over again. At one point, I heard, okay, well, maybe you can have NDP folks on, but conservatives are a no. It should blow the Canadian public's mind that this was the stuff that was going on.
Yep. I'm so glad that he is doing that.
So obviously,
amazing. Yeah. So a lot of people are reporting this. This is from the National Post. Terry Newman, finally proof of what we've known all along. Yeah, CBC is biased against conservatives. Yep, no shit. CNN as well. Again, they're getting exposed. So fake news. CNN deletes post romanticizing New York City terrorists, ignoring connection to ISIS. And not only CNN, and they had to pull their reporting, but even Mamdani, like this. Anyway, I'll get into that. But like accusing radical terrorists, saying things like Alu Akbar, claiming that they were white supremacists. That's a little bit of a stretch. Anyway, they've been doing this for years. So 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed, this is from CNN, 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically, sorry, just gotta shut this down. Their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zohran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far. Can you believe that? Disgusting, like, interpretation of what actually went on. And so here's some people making fun of it. So Michael Knowles, classic Pennsylvania teenager behavior, throwing IEDs and pledging allegiance to ISIS. Boys will be boys. Again, it's just making fun of CNN. And again, they had to redact their friggin' story because of it. This is from Mary Margaret Olahan. CNN really twisted itself into every possible linguistical pretzel for this tweet. Your average American left to assume that these poor Pennsylvania teenagers were part of some social justice initiative. This is from Heritage Foundation. Can you believe the abnormally warm weather made them do this? From Brent Shar. This new this morning might be the worst post ever sent on X. So again, people are calling it out. It happened for years, some of the same groups, but more pressure. Yeah, and then this is their retort. A post regarding the two individuals arrested for throwing homemade bombs outside of New York City, Mayor Zohran Mamdani's home, failed to reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standards we require for all our reporting. It has therefore been deleted. Okay, so if you're going to do that, you're probably going to have to delete like 95% of your posts for the last like 10 years.
Oh, look at this run. What a run.
CNN, when it comes to avoiding mentioning that a terrorist is a Muslim.
Marshawn Lynch is still on his feet. Has blockers now. He's dancing his way.
Yeah, the MSM shilling for literal terrorists. This from this post. Terrorists not caring and trying to kill them anyways. Funny because it's true. This is cool. So New York Police Department Chief Aaron Edwards jumped barricades and ran into danger as radical Islamic terrorists threw IEDs into a crowd of people. Zero CNN tweets about him. And then for this guy, terrorists who were inspired by ISIS and tried to kill Americans as at a protest yelling Allahu Akbar. CNN painted them as teenage brothers visiting the city because it was a pretty day. But yeah, so Chief Aaron Edwards, that's friggin' badass if that's accurate. Look at this. Based. Yeah.
This aged so well. Peterson lays out how boomers got so played by voting for Mark Carney.
Sorry, my volume wasn't at full. Sorry for that.
They think that he's pro-free market, pro-industry. They think he's like a centrist, classical liberal, when in reality, this guy is a complete climate lunatic. He completely believes in the climate apocalypse.
The Liberals, also being relatively instrumental in Canny, decided that they would install a new leader, coronate him, and now we have a prime minister who's only been selected by about 130,000 Canadians. And the real issue here is, Pierce, I think that older Canadians who are likely to prefer Carney believe that he's a return to the stability, let's say, of the period between, well, even the post-war period, but particularly between 1990 and 2010. You know, Carney's a banker. Canadians think he's pro-free market. They think that he's pro-industry. They think that he's a genuine, old-style, stable, conservative, liberal type. And he looks the part, and he plays that, and that's how he puts himself forward. But the problem with that, sir, is that Carney is seriously bad news. Despite his international cachet and his lengthy CV and his term as Bank of England governor, that's all impressed Canadians and made them believe on the face of his CV that he's a competent person. But a little bit of investigation into what he believes and the scope of the oncoming disaster makes itself clear. I mean, Carney believes that 75% of the world's fossil fuels have to remain in the ground. He believes that every single financial decision that every individual makes and every company should
I don't think he actually believes it. I think he's just the biggest grifter in Canadian history, and he stands to profit off of stifling Canadian growth and innovation in actual industries that we need to be in. And he's also selling, and the Liberal government has been selling key resources and infrastructure to people like China, not people, but like industries like China, our gold mines, our lithium mines, while our gold reserves are zero. Okay, we have not learned from history. Anyway, I could go on a tangent. Oh my God.
Prioritize decarbonization over every other consideration, right? He was UN climate envoy, and he started a consortium of businesses that agreed really to be under the aegis of central planning because he believes the climate apocalypse narrative. And my sense is that that entire narrative, and I mean entire, is nothing but the use of provocative and ill-founded fear to exercise a level of control over people that, well, we'll find unimaginable if it ever manages to manifest itself.
This aged so well. Peterson lays out how boomers got
and the people that voted for him, the 130,000 people, again, these are people that live in mansions, live in like areas, you know, that are again where it's rich people that are living in these areas. So they're not experiencing at all what the average everyday, the majority of Canadians experience every single day. The increase in crime, the increase in the cost of living, so many different things, like the loss of our culture and identity. You know, our state-funded media, just like how corrupted they have been. It's yeah, it's just absolutely mind-blowing and so far removed from reality. People that have bought their homes, like I was even saying, like in 2010, 2011, it was still very affordable to buy a home in Canada. Whereas even me in my 20s, I was able to buy a home. The down payment was reasonable. And if you paid less than 20% at that time, you had to pay a minimum of 5%, but you'd incur CMHC fees, which again is also a friggin' grift. And a lot of money on that. And the interest rates were reasonable. The cost for my mortgage was reasonable. And so boomers, respectfully speaking, people that haven't been in the market, the housing market for 10, 20, 30 years, you have no idea. And you would never be able to survive in the world now if you were paying a mortgage at the rates we're paying, not even close. And so, yeah, you could sell your home and make a lot of money, hundreds of thousands, over $1 million. But where are you going to live and survive? Like, where are you going to buy? You're going to have to absolutely downgrade. And downgrading means also like moving to the areas that are not as privileged and entitled and protected. Anyway. Yeah. This is Hawley, Mr. Hawley. He's great.
What's your profit?
And I would equate Aaron Gunn. Obviously, Aaron Gunn's very new. It's the political spectrum, and he's young. But this guy is like, he has so much potential for Canada and Canadian politics, and he reminds me a little bit of him.
Margin, Mr. Patrick.
This is him calling out monopolies, like corporate greed at its finest, and how it's been impacting not only the U.S. but Canada as well, and where we're trading comfort and convenience for our own freedoms.
It's circa 50%.
Mr. Sheedy.
Slightly higher.
It's higher than 50% profit margin?
Slightly higher than MasterCard, yes.
Yeah. Why is it that small businesses continue to use Visa and MasterCard when you're getting charged so much more?
It's in my
yeah, what they call interest rates, like I call this digital tax, and it's such a scam, and there's such a monopoly. And this is also why people don't want this. They want it to be a cashless society, because there's more money and power in cash, physical currency. I explained the purchasing power in other videos, but it also, again, it enables the grifters, the monopolies, the steering committees, the people that go to the Bilderberg meetings and Bohemian Grove and Davos, etc. These are the ones that profit. When I tell you they don't care about Canadians and they are exploiting us at every chance they can get, like at the expense of societal collapse, like I'm not joking.
In my opinion, it's a matter of convenience for the customer, and customers matter to our business.
Maybe is it because that Visa and MasterCard are effectively monopolies? They control 80% of the market?
Certainly.
80% of the market? I'm just having a hard time understanding, Mr. Sheedy and Mr. Patrick, you have a business model, you're making over 50% profit margin. You are able to give the shaft to small businesses. Estimated cost to Missouri businesses from these fees is $1.5 billion. That's with a B, $1 billion a year. Why aren't all of these businesses running away from this model? Because they don't have a choice, because you control so much of the market. The DOJ lawsuit says that you threaten retailers with staggering financial penalties. That's a quote, staggering financial penalties if they use a competitor, and you're paying Apple and Square and others not to compete in your market. You've got 80% market share and you are paying off would-be competitors not to come into the market. This is just classic collusive monopoly behavior.
Very anti-Christian, and it's even mentioned in the Bible. When you take your blessings or you exploit the church, God's people, like that, not very Christian.
What's your profit margin, Mr. Patrick?
Not very Christian. That's why we need to bring God back into the schools. Yes, more.
At this point,
Howard Lutnick.
Howard Lutnick needs to go to jail. Not only is he all over the Epstein files, he has now just been exposed for massive insider trading. So today, the Supreme Court struck down Trump's tariffs. But guess what? Howard Lutnick's family firm bought up the rights to tariff refunds for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar last year, meaning they bet against the tariffs being legal, even though he was out there reassuring the public that the Supreme Court would side with Trump.
What do you think? How do you think they're leaning?
Well, I think they're leaning toward the president.
They've
So
been on both
what
sides.
happened is General Sauer, our Solicitor General, was out first, and the justices were tough. Let's say they were asking them tough questions. But when the other side got up, wow, it was very, very strong. And so I left very upbeat and very positive. And I think these justices are going to come down in favor of the president's powers.
This was just a few days ago, he said this. Now, estimates are saying that the Lutnick family windfall could be into the billions of dollars. I think Andrew Schultz sums it up quite well. He says, quote, "This is the Epstein class playbook 101. Fund both sides of the war and policy. Disgraceful. They have no love or loyalty to America. We are simply a vessel for them to exploit for their own enrichment. If we want Americans to have faith in our institutions, the Epstein class must receive the highest punishment of the law imaginable." At this point, Howard Lutnick needs to go to jail.
And people wonder why people aren't supporting Trump anymore. I've shared this before, so my apologies if it's redundant to people, but this is a very important point because I've talked before about people who were Holocaust survivors, Jewish people that have been speaking out against this radical Zionist movement, and people like Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, etc., crimes against humanity being committed and have been for decades. And there are people speaking out.
Father was in Auschwitz concentration camp.
Listen.
My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising.
Wow.
And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians. And I consider nothing more despicable than to use their suffering and their martyrdom to try to justify the torture, the brutalization, the demolition of homes that Israel...
Dehumanization. There's so many things. And even with what's going on with the strikes in the Middle East, in Iran especially, with the most significant casualties of little girls, children.
Really commits against the Palestinians. So I refuse any longer to be intimidated or browbeaten by the tears. If you had any heart in you, you would be crying for the Palestinians, not for what's being done.
And of course, this is what she looks like.
My father was in Auschwitz.
Oh, there's something else that I posted as well. Let's see if it will load. This. South Carolina, what are you doing? She's like, I'm mostly joking because Canada, what are we doing with who we're voting in? Anyway, how does South Carolina keep re-electing this guy? Are people from South Carolina? I'm not going to say that word. So Senator Graham, this guy.
Isolationists. I don't believe.
Forget it. I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day. They're the best ally we could hope for. So we have a commander-in-chief in President Trump, who I think is Ronald Reagan plus. Needs to end. I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking them to send their sons and daughters over to the Mideast. What I want you to do in the Mideast to our friends in Saudi Arabia and other places, step.
Graham should be the one on the front lines if he wants this war so badly. And his children, if he has children.
Forward and say, this is my fight too. I join America. I'm publicly involved in bringing this regime down. If you don't, you're making a great mistake, and you're going to cut off the ability to have a better relationship with the United States. I say this as a friend. To our friends in Spain, man, you have lost your way. I don't want to do business with you anymore. I want our air bases out of Spain into a country that will let us use them. To our Arab friends, I've tried to help you construct a new Mideast. You need to up your game here. I can't go to South Carolina and say we're fighting and you won't publicly fight. What you're doing behind the scenes, that has to stop. The double dealing of the Arab world when it comes to this stuff needs to end. I go back to South Carolina. I'm asking, God bless Israel.
All right.
We should move all our stuff to Israel. Thank you.
About the
Senator Graham, thank you. All right, now.
All the anti-Semitic.
Crazy. God, there's just so much news on the go. I'm going to finish the video with Candace because it was really interesting. But before I do, I have stuff to do today as well. Anyway, Rachel Gilmore, lunatic. Oh my God. I watched a few minutes of this and I'm like, I'm gonna share this.
Yes.
Okay, so this is from Society Unveiled. Leftist influencer, use my words, doxed white nationalists, then they confronted her. And so I made a comment. I said, she's a radical who has doxed many real journalists and private citizens that she doesn't agree with, and she's always wrong. She doesn't like people showing up at her house, at her door to talk. I didn't like the Antifa crowd showing up at my house, dog trails, gym, etc. either. Did the cops do anything? Nope. I have this on the record. If they ever wanted to start doing their jobs and investigate, 5 years and 2 years later, respectfully, from certain cases that I'm talking about as well. And yeah, she plays the victim when she has been, again, spewing radical garbage that's causing so much tension and division, and the violence largely coming from the left. So again, she's been a key enabler of that. People don't understand just how influential media and propaganda has been in divisive tactics and strategies that have created civil wars and wars. Like it's just unbelievable. Anyway.
At least.
Rachel Gilmore is a left-wing Canadian podcaster masquerading as a journalist.
Is what I do journalism?
Not.
Yes. At least I think so. I have a journalism degree.
Who recently wound up in a self-inflicted drama with pro-nationalist group Second Sons Canada.
I think the reality of everything that happened this week kind of just came crashing down on me. Having to, show up in person to try to intimidate me for my journalism.
Welcome to Society Unveiled, where unmasking the left is my life's mission. Now, people can have their opinions about Second Son's beliefs. It's not a group for everyone, and I'm not here to change your mind. Today, I want to focus on Rachel's desperate attention-seeking behavior, which led to a Canadian Olympic gold.
The Second Sons, or whatever they're called, this is in response to the extreme leftist protest groups, these terrorist organizations, and the Muslim Brotherhood, and people that are in sleeper cells, etc. Like within Canada, this was a response to being vocal about key issues that the mainstream media, like these wingnuts, Rachel Gilmore, are not reporting. So even Jeremy McKenzie, yes, he's part of this, but it's, again, if you think that Diagolon is like some kind of like a right-wing white supremacist terrorist organization, sure, fine. Like you do you, but I'm going to say that they have absolutely been misrepresented and misreported by these lying morons now for a year. So maybe just take reconsider looking at the content. Anyway, and not everything that's being said or shared I agree with. I think there is a bit of like extreme rhetoric that's being talked about. That again, it's just causing more division. And I do understand it's out of frustration. It's out of frustration and because there's a lack of accountability. And so, it's a response. And even with the truck drivers, when they were talking about Indian trucks kill Canucks, A lot of people did not like that because they had their signs out over overpasses, etc. But it brought a lot of attention to the industry and what has been happening now. Like since then, there's been a lot more investigations, a lot more charges, a lot more people being called out for, again, getting fake certifications, etc., fake licenses, and how there's been such an impact on truck drivers, even my stepfather included. And we've talked about this. He's been a truck driver for over 40 friggin' years. Over 40 plus years, over 3 million, way more than that now, of recorded miles on his truck alone, long haul and short haul. And he's saying in the last few years, the insurance, and rural Canada can't afford this shit, but has gone through the friggin' roof, right? And so, like, you think about vehicle insurance, like when you get into it, like an accident, etc., or certain vehicles get into accidents, there's usually a higher insurance rate for specific vehicles, even colors, makes, age groups of people, etc. Now for truck drivers, again, they're getting screwed, and then people are willing to get loads at much cheaper rates, or that's what their management is giving them, and then they're getting subsidized by the government, which again, it's a friggin' grift. So people that are saying that people are coming here and that, oh, they're a net gain, take a look. I'm going to give you examples. When someone works as a temporary foreign worker, and even if they're making, let's say, minimum wage, the management a lot of times, and you can look at Indeed and these job sites, etc., they're claiming to the government that they're paying their employees, like, let's say, $25 an hour or $35 an hour. So and then this is taxpayers' dollars that they're getting subsidized. It's not going to the person, and that's why a lot of people are complaining as well. They're actually making even less than minimum wage, but that's just, again, what these grifter management fucking assholes are doing. And so anyway, this is what I mean. Like, we're not helping Canadian businesses, and Canadians have businesses. Like, we are getting pushed out in so many different ways, like with housing and stuff like that included. But anyways, that difference. So, like, let's say the person's actually getting $15, which they're not. Some of them are saying they're getting $8, $9 an hour. They can't afford to live here on that. And then what's happening is, like, the balance. That balance is being given by taxpayers, and so that's not a net gain. That's not a net gain. So even if they're paying taxes on their salaries, again, that's not even close. That's not even close, because it's only a small percentage of, and temporary foreign workers don't pay taxes either. It's taken out, but it's such a small percentage that's going back in, pennies to the $100 bills that Canadian taxpayers are funding. I hope that makes sense. Because anyways, I didn't have a pre-planned example, and so. Yeah, even that's $20 an hour that the management grifters in certain like food chains and things like that are getting on top of what they're making.
Gold medalist being doxxed, which ultimately led to his employer terminating him.
It all started for me with a tip from a government source, tucked away in an envelope that was literally slid across.
This is her doxing people.
The table. With the help of my friend Elizabeth Simons from the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, managed to unmask the identity of one of the men blurred in these photos. He's an Olympian and a now former coach at this gym. Julio Zardo, an Olympian, a former boxing coach, and a member of a fascist fight club.
Before I begin, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to help me get recommended to others. Rachel Gilmore has been reporting about the rise of far-right extremism in Canada for a few years now, but her main area of focus are the groups that she claims are radicalizing young people.
And they actually have, like, a website
Like,
for this
that
that literally gives away the whole game when it says, quote, "Our birthright has been stolen from us as we are being pushed out of society, academics, and the workforce, and replaced by foreigners without any roots or connection to the Canadian people."
Her main target is Jeremy.
She's actually spewing facts for the first time in her dumb life, and she's saying it ironically because she thinks that it's ridiculous. Like, this is the state of our media.
Jeremy McKenzie.
But, like, I'm Rachel Gilmore, and I'm, like, totally a journalist. Like, I have a journalist degree. Like, totally.
Who founded the groups Diagolon and Second Sons Canada.
I mean, just look at this video from the leader of the extremist group who went after me 2 days ago.
Want to be left alone, you guys. I just want my privacy and be left alone. You guys think my looks good as an outfit?
Watch this first. I'm just
Stop looking at me.
To me, that's
funny. Yeah, I didn't even know Jeremy was going to be talking on this because, again, I was only two. Yeah, it wasn't. Anyway,
a man who's very obsessed.
My first question is, if you're so afraid of people that you claim are Why are you trying to engage with them? It's not like these people are obsessed with Rachel Gilmore. They're promoting a nationalist identity which puts Canada first. Some people in the group are more extreme than others, but from what I gather, they just want our Canadian identity to be restored to what it once was. And people like Rachel don't get all bent out of shape when countries like China, Japan, or Ukraine want to preserve their national identity.
And they're being peaceful and everything. Like, that's the irony as well. Like, we've showed literally videos, so many videos of protests from the left that are violent, that are crazy, burning flags, Canadian flags, talking about killing police officers, all of this disgusting stuff. And yet police, law enforcement, and government are protecting them while they're even hitting reporters like Alexa Lavoie, etc., literally on the record, and then saying that they're the problem. When Press for Truth or other people try to report on like at protests where people are so wrong, and again, they're trying to help, they're getting attacked. They're getting frozen water bottles, etc., thrown at them. Again, this is on the record, and nothing is being done. And in fact, they're the ones that are getting arrested. And so, spare me, Rachel Gilmore, because your guys' disgusting tactics have been so horrendous now for years, and so you cannot even compare the two at this point. You cannot even compare the two, not even close. And targeting schools with like the flags and this and that and the propaganda that you push at Christian schools. And you have people, again, that are part of like the government that are also, again, fully front and center, fully advocating for this, and to take over every friggin' place of worship and beyond, again, for the LGBTQ plus IA, like Free Palestine, BLM, Antifa, like, again, they've been out of control.
But when Canadians do it, that apparently makes them racist far-right extremists.
Canada has a far-right extremism problem.
I gotta back up.
Racist far-right extremists.
Canada has a far-right extremism problem.
Far-right
groups, far-right movements within Canada. Their main thing is remigration, which Anti-Hate describes as, quote, the mass deportations of people who aren't European. According to multiple experts, this is
the mass deportation of people who are here illegally, people who are unlawfully and also committing fraud with their asylum and refugee claims, people that have overextended their stay, whether it be as temporary foreign workers or in that, or the student visas, and again here unlawfully, and again people that have again lied on documents to get social funding from us. These are crimes. If these were Canadians doing it, crime, charge, jail, etc. Can't deport them because they're Canadians. But people that are non-Canadians that are doing this, absolutely deport them. This has to do with illegal, unlawful grifts and or scams, etc., that are being enabled. It has nothing to do with skin color. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. But it does have to do again nothing to do with race, skin color, any of that stuff. But people that are violent extremists and radicals that are also being allowed to come into Canada and seek again like asylum and refugee status, with the intent to at some point possibly harm Canadians.
Form of ethnic cleansing, according to their own website, remove the illegitimate population through the revocation of permanent residency, mass deportations, and even by encouraging naturalized citizens to voluntarily leave Canada.
Rachel consistently makes unfounded claims which are based on her presuppositions of conservative white people. She's partnered with Canada's Anti-Hate Network on several occasions to push these false narratives.
The Canadian Anti-Hate Network, a nonprofit that exposes extremism. I want to give a huge shout out to the folks at the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, who are a huge help as I research this piece. You'd be better off going to antihate.ca and reading their full piece, but with their permission, I am going to do my best to summarize.
When you cry racism about every white person who disagrees with your politics, and then you encounter real racism, people are not going to believe you. She's not engaging in fair, nonpartisan journalism. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be able to report from an unbiased perspective either. My belief systems are firmly ingrained and will remain unchanged until the day I die. She relies on engagement farming and rage posting to get views. That's her main goal, not informing people. She doesn't provide any unique perspectives on Canadian politics because she puts her emotions above everything and puppets far-left ideology, which led to this happening.
I'm a Canadian journalist, and last night, two white nationalists who I reported on came to intimidate me on a private night out. This is the photo I took of them. I've
She's
got
not even
two
at her
more
house.
while they were doing this. I was at a small local music venue. I was watching my boyfriend play music with some friends. But I'll be honest, I was a little nervous that something like this would happen because I had just published a huge expose unmasking where these guys were training and a member of their group. So as a result of my reporting, they severed ties with the coach that had been facilitating these after hours training sessions. That's the coach in the background there showing up to intimidate me. And this is his little friend. And as you can see, he's not hiding shit. That's a Totenkopf, which is a Nazi era symbol. This was definitely.
And he's smiling and everything. Like, this girl is so unhinged. She's never had people try to break into her friggin' house and circle her block, etc. She's never had people following her on, like unhinged. And again, she's a journalist and she's doxing people. And these people, like, again, were not violent, not committing any criminal acts in a public place. And I just can't even believe that these people think that this is some kind of like
definitely one of the biggest investigations I've done and one that's had the most immediate impact. Last night, in between.
Just a point on the not-for-profit, again, look at who gives them money. But this is what they look at. So the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, CON, I asked them, what do they investigate? What groups do they investigate? Because I'm assuming if they're the Anti-Hate Network, it would be looking into anti-Christian, like far left groups, like the pro-Palestinian Antifa, Muslim Brotherhood, hates, all of that stuff. This is what they've listed. So CON investigates and documents hate propaganda created by extremist groups such as the CF88 network, a neo-Nazi propaganda network linked to former Proud Boys members, Diagolon, Second Sons of Canada. So CON also develops educational resources such as the Confronting and Preventing Hate in Canadian Schools toolkit. So I'm like, who do they target for their investigations? Neo-Nazi groups such as the Anti-Muaffin Division, designated a terrorist entity in Canada. White nationalist active clubs like Second Sons Canada. So they're calling these white nationalist active clubs. And by the way, it's not just white people in the club. She's such a dumb idiot. But anyways, and Nationalist 13, which operates under the guise of fitness and combat training, but promote ideologically motivated violence. Like, this is what they're saying, that women that also, that's what she says, women that promote traditional lifestyles or gardening or working out, eating healthy, that they're also right-wing radical extremists. Like, can't even make this shit up anymore. Crazy. Anyway, the Dominion Society, identified as a political arm of the white nationalist movement, Diagolon, Proud Boys, Soldiers of Odin, Northern Guard, and Blood of Honor. What do these all have in common? These are all what they're considering to be white supremacist, right-wing organizations. They're not reporting anything else. So again, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, it is a bunch of leftist, radical propaganda bullshit. Rachel.
Sets. I had just been speaking with a friend and I turned around and I saw these two guys standing there. They were staring at me. So I walked right up and I said, "Can I help you with something?" He was questioning me about when my next piece is coming out. And then he name dropped my old gym and said, "Yeah, maybe we'll drop by sometime." Luckily, I stopped going there. Their goal was very clearly to intimidate me.
My gym,
they found where I was spending my night off with friends.
And no, it
they
doesn't feel
knew
nice.
where I worked out and they wanted me to know it. All because I did reporting exposing them for the things that they choose to say and do. If you don't want to be exposed as a Nazi, don't be a Nazi.
I don't agree with people showing up to intimidate Rachel, but I'm also not surprised that it happened.
Because the existence of people of color
to intimidate, I don't agree with that. Again, as someone who's actually experienced it, it's not comfortable. I will say that. But she's reaping what she has sown. And I'm going to reiterate, these guys were not committing crimes. And she was in a public place and she is a public journalist and she doxes them and she does nothing but hit pieces on them all the time. What did you expect? That they were going to try to confront you? And again, it sounds like they were mostly respectful. And yeah, I just the entitlement, like I just can't understand like the bubble that these people live in.
To make them go pee-pee in their diapers. Such tough guys,
and
though, right? To watch a guy who live streams the same dumb, generally hateful rants. The men who fear me, I scare them. My work scares them. A bunch of white nationalists donned their little costumes again and demanded to be taken seriously. Because there are dozens of them. Dozens. It's basically the adult male version of a kid that keeps doing this.
Setting aside the obvious concerning claim that Rachel made about receiving intel from a government official to assist in the doxing of a private citizen, it's justifiable why people don't want to show their faces when they protest. Peacefully, I might add, without inciting any hatred or violence.
Well, most of these guys refuse to take their masks off. A couple of them were masked off. Want to know who they are? This is Diagolon leader Jeremy McKenzie. That's Alex Brand. This is Derek Harrison, Sean Beauvais McDonald. I obtained a copy of the email they sent out to their Ottawa attendees. Just got my hands on leaked audio from the far-right extremist group. They're also not releasing the names of the venues ahead of time so they can avoid their events being canceled. I obtained
No, it's because you
leaked
guys
audio further. A
have
central
been violent, and even a friggin' guy like singing church music in Montreal had a friggin' smoke grenade or whatever it was thrown at him in the church. Who was that by again? Oh yeah, a radical leftist working in our government. I wonder if he's been fired or jailed yet, because like there's so many, I don't like so many crimes committed with that. Like I can't even.
Idea in the active club
But
movement.
did she report that? No, because again, Antifa, the BLM, the Free Palestine, like despite the fact that there are radical terrorists that are involved in coordinating and executing these what they're calling protests, but riots and stuff like that all over Canada, destroying churches, schools, impeding major infrastructure like our highways and service vehicles from being able to go through and pass by, attacking people, burning our flags, you name it. This has been ongoing now for years, and they never report it. So people like myself cover things that happen on the left and the right if it's bullshit.
Is that while violence may not be immediate, it is imminent. The claim is that a race war is inevitable and the only way to survive is to prepare to fight. While most active club representatives have not been directly linked to coordinated attacks, the use of intimidation, street violence, doxing, and calls to prepare for armed violent conflict, for example, a race war, can create risk for more extreme violence.
Rachel is the one who's initiating the conflict. She's the one seeking attention from these groups.
It's not a race war, it's an ideological war more than anything. And a spiritual war, actually. And she just loves to throw out the race thing.
One acting like a bully. If you need further evidence that she's unbelievably obsessed with these people,
Jeremy McKenzie, that's a man who's very obsessed and very afraid. Diagolon, Jeremy McKenzie, Diagolon. Second Sons Canada, Diagolon. Second
It's a real man, and she's never had a real man before.
Sons Canada, Diagolon leader Jeremy McKenzie, Jeremy McKenzie, Jeremy McKenzie, Jeremy
Who's
McKenzie,
obsessed
Jeremy
with Trump?
McKenzie. Now that's what I call fan behavior.
it seems to me that there's only one instigator in this scenario, and that's Rachel. She's been constantly throwing insults and making defamatory claims about them with virtually zero pushback. How is anything that they're doing affecting her life, other than just disagreeing with their opinions? These people aren't guilty of any crimes, otherwise they'd be locked up, wouldn't they? Yep. Just because everyone doesn't share your beliefs doesn't mean that you're right. Nobody from these groups were consistently berating you the way you do to them, and they probably didn't even know who you were. But you felt the need to do what you call a deep dive in a desperate attempt to validate your journalistic abilities. You thought this was going to be your breakthrough defining moment to add more validity to your reporting prowess. Rachel was expecting to see an article on mainstream Canadian media about her reporting, but it never happened.
It has been 2 days since this happened, and not a single press freedom organization or any of these professional.
See how visually you get a little bit. She gets a tiny little bit of a dose of her own medicine, and it was very much again like that was not intimidating at all. Like again, the stuff that's been done even to me, and I'm not even a journalist. And again, I have such a like small amount of followers and viewers, and the fact that my house was doxxed by a man named Autumn Rain, who I am convinced, but again, there's no investigation being done. I still have the proof that doxed my friggin' home, calling me a bigot. And again, this was in 2023. Nothing done. You know how terrifying that was? She was in a public place with her boyfriend. Spare me. And again, they were not at all intimidating. I mean, intimidating, what I mean, and like they weren't being violent. They weren't being aggressive, at least from what I've seen. And again, totally unhinged her. So this, like a small little dose of what we've been getting, and Alexa Lavoie being hit, repeatedly being targeted by radical leftists. And she is still so friggin' strong and still reporting, again, facts. And Rachel Gilmore, again, like a little bit of a dose of your own friggin' medicine, what you guys have been doing to us and enabling to happen to us now for friggin' years with this white supremacy, right-wing bullshit narrative that you keep on pushing.
associations that are supposed to defend journalists in exactly this kind of situation have even contacted me. You can become an imperfect victim such that these organizations don't feel as though they have to protect and defend you, even if that has broader implications for the industry. None of these institutions care that this happened to me. The public has made it very clear, just based on the response that I am so grateful for, that this is a big deal. But if our institutions, our media, our press freedom organizations ignore that public reaction and treat it as if it doesn't matter, like what kind of world are they creating in the process? What are they enabling, facilitating, even justifying? Out of everything I went through this week, that's the aspect that
she needs to talk with Dan Dix. Like, if she wants to, this girl is unhinged. Like playing the victim when Dan Dix has been so targeted and screamed at and yelled at, things thrown at him, you name it, because of narratives like what she has been pushing, which is a complete lie, by the way. If she was telling the truth and this was helping in any way, but no.
Really hurt me.
And you found yourself in the midst of a beef with the very people you've been bashing for years. And now you act shocked and horrified? You're worried and upset because it totally backfired. You can't victimize other people and dig into their private lives to destroy their careers and then claim to be the victim. You're upset because nobody is rushing to your defense like you hoped, but maybe you should do some self-reflection and ask yourself why. I believe Rachel has been attempting to kick the hornet's nest in some hopes that one of the members from these groups would act out in a violent response. It's almost like she's wishing that her rhetoric about extremist groups will come to fruition so it validates her inner bias. You represent a group that talks about inclusivity and diversity. Well, that includes diversity of opinions that you disagree with too, Rachel. If you're serious about being a journalist, then be a journalist and stop with the lazy tactics. When you keep incessantly poking the bear, don't act all shocked when it bites back. Julio Zardo was a Canadian Olympian whose sole crime was lifting dumbbells and hanging out with friends, and he lost his job for it. Disagreeing with someone's political beliefs is not an excuse to destroy someone's personal life. So if you have even a $1, consider heading over to the link in the pin.
Yeah, and you have Mark Carney again posing with that freaking naked man during a pride parade in front of children and stuff like that. But anyway, I can't with this stuff. I can't. It's just so gross. Oh my goodness. But she's hot though, at least. I guess that matters. All right. I'm going to get into Candace Owens, but I did want to talk about finishing some of the stuff that I was putting together regarding the Jesuits, regarding the Aristotelian science and physics that they were teaching and the theological aspects of it, and how there was a huge rift and the basically the banning of Jesuits in a lot of different places, because again, they had a lot of academic literature that went against the new narrative during the Enlightenment period that people wanted to push. And there were propagandists, people that were talented as artists, but again, should not have been involved in anything scientific, like Voltaire, that ended up being part of like the disillusionment period, what we call the Enlightenment period. So anyways, Tycho was closer to observer. So what I said was Newton and Pascal possibly wrong about the shape of the earth, the sun, luminaries, etc. And Tycho was right based on my own theories of this cosmos and Eudoxus, Hypatia, etc. And I was saying that Newton got some things right, but major theories wrong scientifically and based on the Christian Bible. Anyway, so I just rambled on a little bit, giving some examples in that where the Bible talks about the earth. And so Tycho, and this is just a response from AI. So there's a bit of a prompt there, I'm not going to lie, but again, I'm very interested to see what it has to say. And again, it's still going to go off of a lot of what Google's pushing anyways, which is very propagandized. So Tycho was closer to observed reality than Newtonian cosmology in some aspects. Newton's system may have real mathematical utility while still being physically wrong in major assumptions. The Bible describes a cosmology that reads more naturally as enclosed, fixed, and structured than as the modern heliocentric infinite space. So a cleaner version of the argument. Newton may have correctly described certain mathematical regularities, but a mathematical model is not the same thing as a true physical ontology. A system can generate useful calculations while still misidentifying the actual structure of reality. In that sense, Newton may have captured some recurring motions and ratios while still being wrong about the deeper architecture of the cosmos. Tycho, by retaining a stationary Earth and moving luminaries, remain closer both to direct observation and to the cosmological structures presented in scripture and in scientific literature as well. Okay, so Tycho keeps Earth fixed, aligns with direct human experience, scriptural language of immovability, the absence of felt motion, the visual behavior of the heavens. Tycho preserves observed luminary motion. He keeps the sun and moon moving in relation to Earth, the heavens as a coordinated visible system, astronomy closer to observation than to abstract force laws. So in my critique, Newton's move is the decisive rupture. So firmament becomes empty space, containment becomes gravity, local luminaries become distant bodies, observed motion becomes inferred motion, visible order becomes abstract mechanics. So again, this shouldn't be conversations or topics that we Agent Smith ourselves right away. Like, oh, this is too ridiculous. Like, I don't want to, I want to shut this out. Like, I'm just giving alternative interpretations of the model of the universe. Like many people have been doing for thousands of years, like even in the Enlightenment period, just like the Jesuits, there were other people that were going against what people were trying to push, like Galileo with this false misinterpretation of the cosmos and pushing a heliocentric model, when the people that were pushing it, again, respectfully speaking, they were not the experts of the time. And in fact, they were censoring the actual experts and scientists and academics of the time, which is unfortunate. And we're seeing that played out today as well. We're getting experts and people that have real experience within industries getting completely shut down, targeted, etc. Like and like for people that again have zero experience, like Teresa Tam, when she was like the top health expert. Are you kidding me? Okay, so some things that Newton got wrong. Some of his formulas may describe a recurrent behavior. Some of his mathematics may be operationally useful, but his interpretation of what those equations mean physically could still be false. This happens in science all the time. A model predicts well, but the ontological or the ontology behind it later changes. Sure. I don't think it changes. I think we come back to the greats from the past who were saying this all along. So Eudoxus and Hypatia in my framework. Ordered motion, concentric paths, visible heavenly circuits, in a clock-like structure. Anyway, so Bible themes I can point to. I've talked about different passages within the Bible as well. Anywhere between 140 to over 200 passages within the Bible that have a completely different interpretation of the earth than what's being spewed by mainstream scientists. Okay, so firmament, separating waters, heavens above, earth established and not moved, the tent imagery, pillars, foundations, luminaries placed in the firmament, the earth as a habitable region under the ordered heaven. So strong examples, Genesis 1:6-8, firmament dividing the waters. There's so many. Genesis 1:14-17, luminaries placed in the firmament. Psalm 104:5, earth not moved. 1 Chronicles 16:30, world established shall not be moved. Isaiah 40:22, stretched out like a tent. And by the way, people, when a tent is stretched out, we don't go on the outside of the tent and on the roof and stuff like that and on the sides like we're inside. I hope that makes sense. Sky's hard like a molten mirror. That's where like a molten mirror. I'm like, okay, so like what we're calling alpha particles, etc. Like these could be possibly like the reflective, like repulsion fields or energies like that form like the perimeter of of this contained cosmos. And because of the material is being used, like this is what causes the containment, and then like the mirror effect. And yeah, so that's where I think they're possibly coming with the molten mirror. Psalm 19, sun moving across the heavens. Sun moving across the heavens where the plasma is, where the ether exists. The uncontaminated region, the region of perfection within this cosmos. The area that we're living in, the habitable region, the area of like transformation, mutation, decay, etc. Okay, so yeah, so what to avoid? Yes, saying that Tycho proved my full model. Can't say that. Hypatia taught my exact cosmology. Can't say that. So that so I don't want to make it seem like I'm being biased or cherry picking. And it can't say Newton was wrong about everything. Can't say Einstein was. Absolutely agree with that. Don't say every biblical verse is literal mechanical description in the same way. Totally agree. Okay, so Tycho is closer, I could say. Newton is mathematically useful, but ontologically suspect. The Bible is structurally aligned with a fixed and closed cosmos. Older astronomy preserved a more observationally grounded world picture. So I can give comparisons as well. So this is where, again, where AI can be used to assist with trying to get information out. With also being able to verify to varying degrees of the information from repeatable sources. Okay, so Earth status, Tycho Brahe, fixed and central and practical observation, Isaac Newton, moving globe orbiting the sun, biblical scriptural cosmos, Earth established, fixed, not moved, observed human experience, Tycho, matches ordinary experience of stillness, Isaac, requires motion that is not directly felt, biblical reads naturally as stable, inhabited ground, sun's motion, sun moves relative to Earth, that's Tycho, Isaac Newton, Earth moves around the sun. Biblical, sun described as moving across the heavens, like the great light, the greater of the great lights. Anyway, moon's motion, Tycho Brahe, moon moves around the Earth. So that's not me saying it, that's Tycho Brahe saying it. Again, a literal expert, someone that studied astronomy and astrophysics essentially for literally years and years and years of his life. And then Kepler came in, this friggin' grifter, stealing his work, bastardizing it, not having the friggin' brains to be able to interpret it properly because he didn't have the experience. And then what happens? Tycho Brahe dies suspiciously of a poisoning when he was otherwise healthy. Come on. Okay, so moon's motion, moon moves around the Earth. And then for Isaac Newton, moon moves around Earth while Earth moves around the sun. But apparently, the moon is also orbitally locked anyways, but that's not technically true at all either. So moon treated as a luminary in the heavens serving signs, season, times. That's from the Bible. Moon treated as a luminary in the heavens serving signs, seasons, times, just like the sun. Divine clock. Other luminaries, planets, Tycho Brahe, planets orbit the sun, but the sun systems relate to Earth. Isaac Newton, all planets orbit the sun in heliocentric space, in my opinion. And I'm allowed to have that opinion. It doesn't make me crazy. Anyway. And then biblical luminaries placed in the firmament, heavens above Earth. Cosmic structure, Tycho Brahe, ordered geometric visible system. Isaac Newton, infinite or effectively unbounded mechanical space. Bible, structured, layered, enclosed, firmament-based cosmos. So I'm sorry if you're a Christian and you read the Bible. Anyway, it's right there. I've had these conversations too with Christians, respectfully, but very frustrating, very frustrating. And this was over, I think it was Signal. I was part of the Signal's chat group. This was like 4 years ago, probably at this point. Actually, yeah, 4 years ago, almost exactly. And because we were talking about the Earth stuff, and the way she just completely dismissed it on this group chat about how friggin' ridiculous this stuff was, and then I cited scripture, and she did not like that. And then so I'm like, we can have this as a private conversation because it's completely unrelated to what we're talking about, right? And I put in so much time, like I was giving her information, taking the time out of my friggin' day, even though I was really busy, to give her communicate. And she didn't read anything, and she fucked off everything. And this is what I mean. Like, so people can be, they're willingly ignorant, willingly ignorant. And how can that I not call you an NPC? Anyway, because it's one thing to not agree. It's one thing to take someone's information, but consider it and think critically and then come up with the reasons why you don't agree or whatever, or just leave it. But it's another thing to completely ignore really useful information just because it goes against what you want to believe or continue believing. That's not science. Definitely not science. Okay, so need for invisible force, lower, Newton very high. And in the Bible, gravity is not even described. Need for physical containment. And so for Tycho Brahe, more compatible with enclosed system readings. The fact that this is a gaseous pressurized contained environment as well. Isaac replaced by gravity as atmospheric cosmic ordering principle. No. Mixing up centrifugal forces and centripetal forces and things like that with what they're calling gravity. And the need for a medium. And he also removed the medium, the ether. Like, just so ridiculous. Like, I don't know how people bought into this. This is what I mean. Like, it sounds ridiculous to me, respectfully speaking, but there's so many things nowadays that sound so ridiculous to me as well. And people are eating it up and believing it. And so, you know, there's something to that I don't think is new to this generation. So need for physical containment. So the Bible, strongly compatible with enclosure language. Firmaments, heavens. Tycho Brahe can coexist more easily with a structured heaven. With Newton, tends to dissolve firmament into empty space. And Bible, firmament explicitly presents in Genesis and related imagery. Okay, so Earth's immovability passages for Tycho Brahe, strong fit. Newton requires reinterpretation as metaphor, phenomenology, or poetic accommodation. This is AI saying this. And then for the Bible, plain reading favors fixicity. I don't know if that's a word, but it's what it's saying. Pillars, foundations, imagery. More naturally accommodated by Tycho Brahe. Newton must be spiritualized or treated as poetic only. So a theory, faith, a religion. And then the Bible, repeatedly present in scriptural cosmology. Repeatedly. Tent stretched out, heavens imagery. Tycho Brahe, compatible with vaulted or extended structure. And then with Newton, usually reinterpreted symbolically. Bible, strong enclosure, canopy, resonance, examples given. Waters above, below. Tycho Brahe, easier to situate in layered cosmology. For Newton, hard to integrate into modern astrophysical ontology. Bible, core part of Genesis cosmology. Relation to direct sight. Closer to visible sky behavior. Tycho Brahe, who observed the friggin' luminaries for decades within his observation area. Like, people literally need to understand that this guy was a literal expert. Newton depends on inferred large-scale, unseen motions. You take the guy that was doing this for a living, and then you take a guy that was sitting on it, like by a tree, and then an apple falls, and he comes up with these fake conclusions. And anyway, Bible, closer to observational language. Relation to common sense horizon. Again, that's not me saying this. This is just conversation with Grok. More aligned with stable Earth perception. That's Tycho Brahe. Isaac Newton requires curved, moving Earth, unseen in ordinary experience. Bible reads more naturally with stable land, having distinction. Yeah, mathematical power again, but again, in theory, I'm gonna reiterate that you can use algorithms and complicated mathematical frameworks that may seem to work, but even when I'm talking about like with the radius of the Earth, the diameter, the alleged circumference, I think this is based on like the limitations or the perimeter or the boundaries of like the sun's travel path, which travels no further south than 23.4 degrees south latitude of the equatorial ring, and no more, and that's when it's traveling the Tropic of Capricorn, and then no more than 23.4 degrees north latitude of the equatorial ring, 0 degrees, where it is traveling the Tropic of Cancer. And then we get the 24,901 miles circumference. What does a clock do? How many hours in a day? 24 hours in a day. And the sun's, what they're saying, the apparent, but not the appropriate, or the observed but not the actual path of the sun. It was ridiculous to me. Travels at approximately 15 degrees per hour, which is a little over 1,000 miles per hour in a circular ring path on average every single day for the rest of our friggin' lives. Anyways. And so they took that travel path and they misinterpreted that into be like the size and the dimensions of the actual Earth itself, which in so many different calculations and based off of observations from like countless seafaring explorers, like there is, again, there's a lot of anomalies and questions about, again, what people are reporting to be the actual coordinates and latitudes and longitudes of certain locations, and especially in the south, just not making sense as to what the NASA experts are telling us. Okay, so civilizational effect preserves visible ordered heaven around Earth. Tycho Brahe. Newton contributes to modern mechanistic decentered cosmos. Again, chaos. We had order, we got chaos, and we're still, again, in chaos. when you truly don't understand like the nature of the cosmos, this living, intelligently designed cosmos, you're not going to be in harmony or in sync with it. And we're missing that piece. Like the grounding, the meditation, the breathing through the nose, all of that stuff. This allows us to be like more connected to the cosmos, like this unified force. And the more confused we are about the calendar systems, about time, all of this stuff, like again, like the less, like the more distracted we are. Yeah, and it's what knowing about Newton too, like a powerful mathematical description of recurring motions. I'm sorry, buddy, but Eudoxus, Hypatia, Aristotle, like there's so many greats of the past that were already giving, like they were already creating like the solar dials, sundials, whatever you want to call them, different calendar systems. Like even within Christianity, so many different denominations had different periods where they would celebrate different festivals and major events. Some people it was like solar, some people it was lunar, some people it was a blend. Talked about all of this stuff. So for people to say that he was the most accurate is complete bullshit. And it's such a slap in the face of like the experts and the greats that came before, like the Stoics of the past. And I think we're de-evolving, unfortunately. And we really need to go back to the greats of the past in order, the ones that had these ancient advanced civilizations and cultures. And we're open to questioning like the reality of the cosmos without being targeted. Okay. So I don't want to be too redundant. But I mean, some of the stuff I definitely want to throw into some kind of an essay, dissertation, just for my own reference. And so the other stuff I talked about as well. Not as important. Yeah, so it stopped from there. Okay. I do have a meeting today. I did want to finish this. I have time.
333 ever.
Okay, I'm starting at exactly where I left off. Playback speed normal, okay. And then just Donald Trump has betrayed America. She's calling out a lot of stuff.
Woman was just saying 33 all the time.
She was talking about occult groups and different connections that they use with the sacred geometry, the symbology. She talked about the pentagram at the location that Charlie Kirk was possibly sacrificed. I'm going to reiterate, like I do, and I could be wrong. I do think that Tyler Robinson is the one that murdered Charlie Kirk. And I think like with the rifle and the casings, etc. Again, like I think he was radicalized. Obviously, he was mentally unwell. Like he murdered someone. A lot of people are saying that he didn't do it. That it was other people that he's or that that Charlie Kirk is still alive. If you look at my previous videos, you'll understand why. I've come up with my interpretations of what happened. And again, given new information, I'm willing to change my mind. But I will say there's still no proof yet that ties certain groups that are possibly again involved in the radicalization process and making it where someone like Tyler Robinson would be the fall guy for these types of horrific things to happen. And Charlie Kirk was someone that was starting to address publicly really important, significant topics like about the Middle East, about what's going on with Israel and AIPAC and Iran. So many different things. And so for people to say that he's possibly still alive and hanging out with Epstein, like I do not buy that and at all, because I could think that Charlie Kirk, again, like I do, again, I didn't know him personally, but what he was helping a lot of people. And again, he was an amazing Christian man, strong man. And that is exactly the type of person that people, these psycho, evil, disgusting human beings that hate Christians, hate the family dynamic, etc. Because again, it removes control of people making more money off of people, right? Like if people don't have anyway, I'm not going to ramble on, but killing Charlie Kirk was a powerful, not powerful, it was a disgusting act of savagery, but taking out an incredible role model for Christians internationally. I hope I'm making sense. I'm rambling on. And it doesn't matter your skin color, your gender, or anything like that. Charlie Kirk was a good role model. I think he would have been someone that would have been good for the world, but especially for the U.S. And so of course they would take someone like that out. So I don't think they would keep him alive. Again, I could be wrong, but
So to the routine,
and I went through the footage and it was horrific. So much, again, like slow-mo, like frame by frame by frame, and to me, again, like that, it does not look AI generated, any of that stuff. It looks like it was real. And again, take a look at what I've shared before regarding it. And so
gaslit public, I would like to validate your every instinct, most especially about the subsequent behavior of Turning Point USA as an organization, behavior that looked to us as though it was diabolical. There was apparently, sadly for them, not enough empiricism, rationality, or spell casting in the universe to override our sense that something was and is deeply wrong. Deeply. Okay? Deeply wrong.
Still need proof, though.
What did they give us? The horrific murder of a man, followed by the joyful coronation of his wife, who is now inviting his enemies onto the very ship that he built? Spiritual ick is what we felt. Okay? Words have meaning. They sent out their broadcasters, effectively, to cast something more broadly to the public. What they cast was, she's a grieving widow. That's what Charlie would have wanted. 6 feet social distancing. To what end, though? To what end? I believe, it's pretty obvious now, there was an ultimate goal of raising Erica's political profile as a potential presidential candidate down the line. Actually, that was explicitly and almost immediately seeded by her dear friend and part-time homosexual deviant, Tyler Boyer, who she can't remember how she met. Take a listen to what he said a mere 12 days after Charlie's assassination.
Do you see politics in her future down the road?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I had conversations with Charlie about that. So he was like, man, Erica could be so much bigger and better than me at almost everything. We laugh all the time about it because people were like, Charlie was going to be president someday. He believed firmly that Erica was going to be president someday.
Well,
I mean, if she's not a criminal, then why
again, them telling us the private conversations were the exact opposite of everything that Charlie was saying publicly. Women, get married, have children, have lots of children, stay home. That's more important. In the days leading up, Erica said she stayed back because Charlie said home needs you. That's why she didn't go to the September 10th event. They were just on a tour. Charlie was just every day telling people that family's the most important thing. But privately, when he sat down with Tyler Boyer, he was like, Erica's going to be president. That's what I want for my wife. I want her to be president and to be also the CEO and chairman in the event of my death.
And so what? And if he did say that, then there's definitely more to look into. And I'm going to reiterate, even if she was a honeypot type or whatever, then like it doesn't mean at all that she was involved in his murder. I'm going to make that clear. And in a lot of cases, if you were a honeypot type, you don't even have that type of pull anyway, and you likely wouldn't know. And so I'm still torn. Like a grieving widow, you know, with her family, like it's like people do grieve differently. And do I think that there are people possibly pressuring and pushing her to monopolize on the death of her husband? I do think that. And do I think that she's monopolizing on it as well? Yes, I do. And but again, if she's not a criminal and people are looking into so much of her background and stuff like that, and the stuff that they're finding is like very minor, like and I mean that, like like the partying, the drinking, the reality shows and stuff like that. Like she did lie about that, and that's not very Christian, by the way. And like owning things, accepting responsibility, confession, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's more Christian. But I mean, she's not a criminal, and there are, again, that we know of. If there's proof that's provided, which people need, if you're going to slam a widow, okay, that like, you know, like where her husband died on friggin' international TV, and which is like, again, it's just horrific. But yeah, I mean, if she's not involved in that, then I don't know, why not? Why not? There are so many people on the Epstein list, like Lutnick, that I wish would had more attention from mainstream people to pressure Trump into him being forced to resign or get fired. And because American politics do impact Canadian politics, they really do. And the economy does impact the Canadian economy. And so I have a vested interest of speaking on American politics. And I like your model, your system of politics, your constitution, like way better than the Canadian model.
And, he wasn't the only one, because you got to go backward to really realize how deranged everything was. Here is Frank Turek on October 7th, just 3 weeks following Charlie's assassination. Take a listen.
He's a religious guy.
The ticket in 2028 is going to be Vance
Candace.
Kirk. And I said, I don't know if you want to take it because I don't think you're going to have the same effect as the president of Turning Point USA. But you know what? Between you and me and our listeners, I'm not giving up on the Vance Kirk ticket.
Well, it's very exciting right there. But
I think Erica would be an amazing president someday.
That, my friends, would be an example of what Father Ripplinger described diabolical psychology. Like, oh, Charlie was going to be the president, but you know what? It was Vance Kirk is what we were hoping for. But now he's gone. I just realized we don't have to let go of that hope because there's still a Kirk and there's still a President Vance.
That's fair.
That could be.
Hey, I don't know. But like, seriously speaking, like, what if it was like AOC or something like Ilhan Omar, heaven forbid, on the ballot for the Democrat side, or Kamala Harris again, or like a Hillary Clinton? Like, you're telling me that you would not vote for Erica Kirk? Because I would, before these people any day of the week. If I'm given information that she's like a fraud, then of course that would be a no. But AOC is also like as an actual fraud. And she's actually stolen money from American taxpayers, and people have not looked into her dealings with certain companies and not-for-profits and USAID and APAC and stuff like that, near as much as they should. And and they're still in Congress. Like, I just can't even believe it.
Really beautiful and exciting. Could be what Charlie wanted in the end. And of course, here is the very and always excited Mikey McCoy echoing that sentiment. Take a listen.
He left behind these blueprints for her. And
for you.
Yeah, there you go.
And for you, Mikey.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Yeah. We don't really ever know what the outcome's going to be. I definitely thought maybe there would be a Vance Kirk ticket. Maybe there still will be a Vance Kirk ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Just beautiful, isn't it? Who could?
It's trying to use her. I know I keep on stopping her, and I shouldn't. And it's probably really annoying to people. But there are people that are possibly like pressuring Erica Kirk into filling that void that the Republicans have, because they have been more unpopular, especially in the last year. At this point now, like a little less than a year, and they need to have people that have like more popularity. And so now that they don't have Charlie Kirk, unfortunately, of course, they're going to go to the next best thing, which is Erica Kirk, and try that angle. And because they need help right now, MAGA's not doing well. Maha's not doing well. And Trump has, he's come back on a lot of the promises that he had. And he's sharing the same narrative that people have been calling out for years. Like, they like to like be smart about like not buying into. Like, it's the same old.
Deny this sort of a destiny, Erica being the president in her husband's place, and they're smiling and they're laughing about that plausibility. And we're never going to see those blueprints, guys. But they did say to Mikey McCoy, my 21-year-old person who I have no idea how he even got this job as chief of staff, but these blueprints are for you. I didn't responsibly give them to someone that was running my estate, lawyers. No, I wanted to leave these for you and to Erica, because I don't know, she just would understand these blueprints. With everything that I have thus far uncovered about Erica, I do believe that was her ultimate goal, the White House. I think Elizabeth Lane read Erica correctly when she posited that she may be a psychopath, because, in my opinion, only psychopath could, after her husband's public assassination, offer a raise to Dan Flood, the security guard who failed Charlie in every possible manner and way on September 10th. Only a psychopath who does not experience human emotions in the way that humans experience them would be capable of offering and then giving an in-home interview to the New York Times in the immediate days following her husband's assassination. The New York Times, a publication who her husband hated, and would then tell that journalist that the least traumatizing part was the idea of raising her children without a father. Okay? A psychopath is the best answer that I can come up with for why she felt compelled to go.
Okay, that's a bit harsh. I'm going to get past that.
There's no marriage.
Oh, wait. Showing Tim Dillon.
Comedians that are daring to make jokes about the obvious. Like Tim Dillon, take a listen.
You know, you look at the Kirk thing, right? Remember that? You look at that and you try to zoom out and go, all right, tragic death on its face. We see the furry's boyfriend, the thing. Okay. Then we zoom out, we go, wait, the wife's weird. Something up with the wife. The organization's weird. Something's up with them. 3 weeks after the guy's dead, she's out there with.
Again, she could be pressured, into doing that. Something Alex Jones had reported on it. And it is circulating, but not as widely as it should be. And it was shut down. And why was it shut down? Investigations into people that were part of the furry trans community, the LGBTQI plus IA communities, that even in the days leading up to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, were talking about him getting killed. And within a day or something like that, they were literally talking about it. And why was that buried? Why was that shut down? So again, that's just more proof that, like my intuition was right at the beginning, where there's absolutely other people involved in this. There was no doubts in my mind. Like for me, it's absolutely, he did not work alone. There's no way. And I shared, again, a lot of surveillance and camera footage from different platforms like door cameras, et cetera, that showed Tyler Robinson's movements, et cetera. And again, really well broken down. And so, there is something that people need to address a lot more. Like a lot of people are saying, oh, it's the Jews, there's all of this stuff, but they're not looking at the groups that have been funded by certain people that are within certain organized, like Soros groups, et cetera, that are intentionally funding this divisive rhetoric and funding one group specifically on the far left. And again, this radicalization, this division, et cetera, that's being created is causing people to, again, do things like what Tyler Robinson did.
Sparklers,
just like Lee Harvey Oswald, just like others.
They're doing Cirque du Soleil. Something's off. Something's weird. Now we find out, like, the wife it's beyond weird. It's creepy. And there's a very good chance that this woman was his handler, that he was this powerful young guy who raised a lot of money for a lot of people and took a lot of money from a lot of people. And money's never free. So you think about it, you say you have this, how do you direct a guy like that who's incredibly important? He's running the largest young voter, registration organization. He's handling large sums of money. He's out there sculpting narrative as it regards to domestic and foreign policy. So you have a handler who comes in, and she may have loved him. I'm sure she loved him. Why wouldn't a handler love her husband? Because even though she was his Mossad handler and probably had him killed, no marriage is perfect. None. Not one. No.
I mean, she does say like shalom and stuff like that. And she's seeming to be like more and more identifying as someone that follows Judaism, which it is what it is, and not Christianity. And so I do find that very interesting. And I don't necessarily think that Charlie Kirk would have like been in support of that. And so I do find that very interesting. But again, I mean, we could belabor this point. Alex Jones, again, he's getting a little frustrated as well with like how people are reporting it and blaming just one organization. When even with the January 6th Fed surrection, I'm going to reiterate, this was something that was a Fed surrection that was funded by far left radicals and Democrats and socialists, people within the government, and then people working outside of even the American, like outside of the country. And causing these like the creating again like false narratives as well, and wanting things to get a lot more difficult again to push a narrative. And yeah, they've been doing this for years, and so like I mean, people do need to look at the sometimes it is Murphy's law, or not Murphy's law, the obvious. Oh, what is that called again? Occam's razor. Yeah, it must be that one. Okay, so more important news for Canada right now. And then I have to walk my dogs, and then I have to go. Breaking NDP member of parliament crosses floor to Liberals. And so this has been such a blow to Canada. So it will ultimately possibly most likely lead to the Liberals now having a majority government. Worst nightmare for Canada under this regime. And it's not a new government. I hate that people say that because like multiple members of cabinet, again, have been there for over a decade. And Carney, again, working with the Bank of Canada, involvement in our government, involvement as a financial advisor to the government during COVID, 2020 and beyond. And people don't see that. His record with the budget he just threw out with record-breaking deficits and debt and recategorizing debt. It's just ridiculous. And yeah, what did she get? Likely some kind of a deal for her community. But again, you're selling out Canada with this bribe when like it should have been something again that you didn't need to cross the floor in order to get. And she's possibly again like just my my prediction is that she's going to have some kind of an advisory role or key role into some kind of like either with maybe with Greenland with what's going on there, and we're establishing a consulate finally. I don't know.
Jen, there has been
I'm selling out Canada.
Another floor crosser, but this time not from the Conservatives. Let's take a look.
NDP MP Lori Idlow crossing the floor to Liberals, party leader says. New Democratic Party MP Lori Idlow is crossing the floor to join the Liberals, NDP leader Don Davies said Tuesday evening. Quote, "We're very disappointed that Lori Idlow has decided to join the Liberal caucus," end quote, Davies said. Quote, "The position of the New Democrats on floor crossing is long-standing and clear. We believe that when someone rejects the decision of their electors and wants to join another party, they should put that decision to their voters," end quote. The move gets Prime Minister Mark Carney closer to a sought-after majority in the House of Commons. It drops the NDP down to just 6 MPs and brings the Liberals up to 170 seats. CBC News has reached out to Idlow and the Prime Minister's office for comment. Idlow has represented the Nunavut in the House of Commons since 2021.
So the interesting thing about this article is they actually didn't bother to include the entire statement from Don Davies. So here's the piece they missed. In a democracy, something as important as the choice of party representation in Parliament must always remain with our constituents. We believe that should happen here.
Yep.
Now, that statement was sent to us by one of our sources inside of Parliament, and it's just interesting that CBC would just conveniently forget to put that in there because it's questioning democracy. Can't have that happen within the CBC now, can we? And it's kind of ironic that they published this story after earlier Travis Donraj testifies in Parliament talking about corruption within the CBC, talking about the fact that there was concerns about the Prime Minister's office influencing editorial decisions in CBC and influencing messaging in the CBC. But here we are. So there's no use crying about this. Let's talk about what this means.
So what this means, according to the article, that the Liberals have 170 seats. Well, technically that's true because 3 of them are vacant. The Liberals are expected to win at least. That would put them at a majority. Brian, what does this mean for Canadians?
Well, what this means is what will most likely happen is assuming, even if, but assuming the Liberals actually win all these 3 by-elections, that will put them at 173 seats. That will put them at technically a 2-seat majority, because they only need 172. But if they had 172 seats, the Speaker would have to break the tie on all of the votes that ended up being tied at 171. 171 from the opposition, 171 from the Liberals, and then the Speaker would break the tie. So, thanks to Laurie Idlout crossing the floor, this would potentially make that not necessary, because that gives the 172 plus the Speaker, so they wouldn't need the Speaker to break the tie anymore. Now, what this also means, and this is the more concerning part for Canadians, is that after these by-elections, what Mark Carney will almost certainly do is he will prorogue Parliament for 1 day. Why will he do that? What's the point of that?
Well, it's to reset the agenda.
It's to reset the agenda, but what it also does, folks, is it resets every single committee, and it resets the membership of every single committee. Now that the Liberals would actually have a majority, they want a majority in committee as well. So resetting Parliament gets them the opportunity to now say, all right, the composition of committees now needs to change, and it needs to reflect what the composition of government actually is. So the Liberals would have a majority in every single committee, and they would be able to push through virtually everything in every single committee.
Unamended, if desired.
Unamended, if desired.
Now, this all sounds pretty scary. And quite frankly, it is.
It is.
But it's not the end for Canadians. We still have a completely separate House, the Senate, that we can work with our senators to let them know how we feel about certain bills. And if you have a Conservative MP, don't forget about them, because they will still be fighting in the House of Commons for you. But the Senate is going to be the key house in this case, because they will be able to make recommendations for amendments, and if absolutely necessary, they will be able to kill bills too. Pardon me, it's a little bit late.
Well, and here's the other thing. This is what we call a fragile majority. And we've been asked this question many times. What happens if they win all these by-elections? What happens if they get to 172, 173? I'm less concerned about a 172, 173 majority than I would be at a 190 majority. 190 majority, you can pretty much take it to the bank that the Liberals would be able to push through everything, and we would be locked into a government for 4 years. In this case, it's a fragile majority. People can be sick. People can be out of the country. People can be unavailable for confidence votes. And we've seen it happen many, many times in the past. And Mark Carney is going to have this majority, but there's a lot of Canadians, people who voted Liberal included, that are not happy with Mark Carney obtaining majority through this fashion.
Right, because Canadians did not vote for a majority government. Canadians voted for a minority Liberal government with the help of the Conservatives, Bloc, and NDP to pass legislation that is well-rounded and good for all Canadians. So if Mark Carney gets a majority through these backhanded tactics, which it looks like he will, then Canadians who even voted Liberal are going to be like, that's not the mandate we gave you. Why are you doing that? Why can't you work with the other parties to try to do something that is good for all Canadians? Why are you upsetting our democracy in this way? So, you know what? Maybe he gets an extra 3 years out of this, but it is not going to end well for the Liberals. I don't want to say this is exactly what happened in Ontario when they swapped out what was his name? Dalton McGuinty for Kathleen Wynne. But she had a majority.
Dalton
She did her 4 years,
McGinty
and
is
then the
under
party
fire
got
now too for some corruption.
decimated. So that is my
Everybody talks
prediction
about that.
for this government.
Called
so
it.
Canadians, get in contact with your senators. It's not like an MP where you only have one. You have multiple senators for your provincial region. So let them know who you are and that, you know, I'm going to be in contact with you somewhat frequently to discuss the things that are concerning to me. Be polite, be respectful, and that's the house we have to focus our attention on.
And here's the other thing. Don't be afraid to write letters to the Prime Minister's office, to Mark Carney, and to any of the other Liberals saying, listen, you want a majority government? You take it to an election. You want a majority government? Go and get the proper mandate. It's not up to you to be doing backroom deals and bribing all of these MPs to come over to your party. You didn't win that seat in the last election. So therefore, you don't deserve to have these MPs serving in your party. That's against the principle of democracy in this country. Doesn't matter if it's technically within the rules. That is not within the spirit of democracy, and anyone that is trying to argue against that is not arguing with you in good faith. So this is the time for Canadians to get more active than ever before in politics and let the government know that you do not support this, whether you voted Liberal last time or not. If the shoe was on the other foot,
exactly,
we would still be having the same conversation. We wouldn't be agreeing if the Conservatives tried to do this as well.
No, because as you said, it goes against the spirit of democracy.
Yeah,
and please,
and that's where there's hypocrisy. Like there are people like on the like the left that are celebrating this, and I'm like, do you realize that like what you accept for your own, you're going to accept for the others as well, right? And there's going to be a time where the Conservatives will be in power. And again, if they're doing the same tactics, you'd be losing your friggin' minds. And that's where you see the hypocrisy. You'd lose your minds if the conservatives did it, but you're celebrating it when the Liberals do it. This is what I mean. What you accept and allow for others, don't be surprised when it comes back to slap you in the face.
Remember, when you are contacting parliamentary officials, no cursing, no name calling, and no threats, but let them know exactly how you feel about this. I don't think this is right, and I don't approve.
So, ladies and gentlemen, take a minute. You can take a minute to get angry, take a minute to be upset, but after that minute's over, take your breath, and let's get to work.
Yep. And yeah, these people are great. And yeah, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.